What's up, guys? How's it going? Good. Getting back on the grind right now. Um, Diving into the eighth habit today, talking about discipline. So last time we talked about vision, about the mind, how that's very, very important, and how you see not only yourself, others, but also the world and the potential that lies in there. So we're off onto discipline now. I'm really excited for this, guys. So I actually haven't um, like pre-read this section, and so like we're just gonna go with it and see what happens. Um, so discipline, it deals with the body. Um, Discipline is just as important as vision, though it is second in the chain. Discipline represents the second creation. It's the executing, the making it happen, the sacrifice entailed in doing whatever it takes to realize that vision. Discipline is willpower embodied. Hmm. Sounds like from what this is saying right here, it's like the sacrifice. I I once heard sacrifice uses like the terminology um like living a higher law. Like you're sacrifice. Oh, you're doing sacred things. That's what it was. Like you're like realigning yourself with correct principles or principles that will at least guide you towards your purpose or your goal. And so like discipline, like vision is being able to see that, and discipline is being able to like close the gap between where you are right now and then where you are trying to go. Peter Drucker once observed that the first duty of a manager is to define reality. Discipline defines reality and accepts it. It is the sorry, Discipline defines reality and accepts it. It is the willingness to get totally immersed in it rather than deny it. It acknowledges the stubborn, brute facts of things as they are. Wow, that's deep. To define reality. I'm actually like not quite sure what that means, but from what it sounds like, it's almost as if discipline is stating, okay, yes, there's this like, or at least vision is stating there's this vision I have like of the future. This is what I want, but it's very theoretical almost. It's like I don't actually know how I would get there, but this thing would be cool, right? Whereas discipline is saying, look, these are the hard facts. This is the reality. This is actually our circumstances and our situations, and de- defining that and a willingness to admit it and to accept it. There's a quote here that says, "When the morning's freshness has been replaced by the weariness of midday, when the leg muscles quiver under the strain, the climb seems endless, and suddenly nothing will go quite as you wish. It is then that you must not hesitate." Oh wow. Okay, that actually reminds me of like this video right here. I had a long day today, tons of homework. My brain was fried, and honestly, I'm feeling pretty worried right now. But but I had the impression that I needed to go and make this video, and I told myself in the morning that I was going to do it, and I was not going to fall asleep without doing it. And it is cool that it says it is then that you must not hesitate, and I hesitated, but I eventually did it. But that's really, really cool. Another quote says, "Leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality." Okay, that's cool. I like how there's a difference between manager and leadership here. Like Peter Drucker says the first duty of a manager is to define reality, and then Warren Bennis here says leadership leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality. That's pretty cool. Um, that managers define reality, but leadership is actually the competency and the character to realize that vision and make it like a real thing. Without vision and a sense of hope, accepting reality may be depressing or discouraging. Happiness is sometimes defined as the ability to subordinate what you want now for what you want eventually. Yeah, that's like Neil Maxwell. He talks about that all the time. Um, where he's like, he, he's like, yeah, Don't give up what you want most for what you want today. Like a lot of times we like want to eat like kind of food or watch TV all day or like not do our work or homework. But in reality, like those other things, they're not getting us anywhere. They'll bring us short-term pleasure, but they're not bringing us to any specific place or like our most ideal place. Like if you thought like your most ideal situation in which you could ever be, like the short-term gratifications are not the things that are going to bring us there. There's this idea of like I think it's called second-hand consequences. So, right, the first-hand consequences is like what immediately follows, and then second-hand consequence is like what comes after that. And so the first-hand consequence is going to be the pleasure in the short-term gratification, or it'll be the pain in long-term values, like going through the pain and sacrifice now to get freedom later. And then second-hand consequence is just those flipped. So in the short term, you're going to get pain long term, and then long-term values, as you sacrifice, you're going to end up getting lots of freedom, joy, peace, and happiness. And so it can be a little deceiving there because our like natural body wants the short-term gratification to like I don't know, not work, eat food, indulge, watch Netflix all day, but that's not going to get us anywhere to happiness and freedom. This personal sacrifice, the process of subordinating today's pleasure for a greater long-term good, is exactly what discipline is all about. Most people equate discipline with an absence of freedom. Shoulds kill spontaneity. There's no freedom in have to. I want to do what I want to do. That's freedom, not duty. In fact, the opposite is true. Only the disciplined are truly free. The undisciplined are slaves to moods, appetites, and passions. Oh wow, that's so true. That's unreal because it's so true. It's like we get so addicted to our laziness. Like we get enslaved by that. We get enslaved by our bodily appetites and passions like of sleeping in. Like how many of us actually wake up early and get stuff done? Like probably a lot, honestly. But there are also a lot of us that don't. We're slaves to our laziness, to our bodily functions. Um, Even like from like a neuroscience, like brain chemistry per perspective, like pornography, right? Like you may think, oh yeah, like, I do what I want, like I'm free to do whatever I want, but in reality, you're enslaving yourself. You're breaking yourself against a principle, and you're not going to find joy and happiness in that. Stephen Covey gives an example here. He says, "Can you play the piano? I can't. I don't have the freedom to play the piano. I never disciplined myself." Oh, so like skills too, like piano, soccer, basketball, football, heck, ping pong, or the ability to like learn, um, just like skills and general talents. I prefer playing with my friends to practicing, as my parents and piano teacher wanted me to do. I don't think I ever envisioned myself as a piano player. Visualization, that's cool too. Um, I never had a sense of what it might mean, a kind of freedom to create magnificent art that might be valuable to myself and to others throughout my entire life. Wow, he never envisioned himself as a piano player. That goes back to vision. Like, who are you? How do you view yourself? What are your skills and talents, right? Huh. Let that sink in. Do you envision yourself as a basketball player? Do you envision yourself as a 10-day rep? Do you envision yourself as a kind, loving father or husband or wife, spouse, whatever it is, as a friend who actually like puts the needs of others ahead of their own? Like, who do you envision yourself as? And then, are you creating that freedom to create a magnificent life? That's cool. What about the freedom to forgive, to ask forgiveness? What about the freedom to love unconditionally, to be a light, not a judge, a model, not a critic? Think of the discipline involved in these. Discipline comes from being discipled to a person or a cause. Okay. This brings you back to the eulogy experience, where you envision yourself at your own funeral, and the speakers take a truth serum. And what are they going to say about you? If you could choose what they're going to say, what would you have them say? And they have to be honest. What would you want them to say about you and your life? Well, this is really cool right here, where it says, um, discipline comes from being discipled to a person or a cause. And so if you want to be remembered as a good husband, then you're a disciple to your wife. If you want to be remembered as an integrous person or as a charitable person, then you are a disciple to integrity and to charity. You have to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice your time, your energy, your resources to doing higher and sacred things in order to obtain those. And you might have to go through sorrow, pain, and that's good, because that's going to bring you to those principles, those good causes. The great educator Horace Mann once said, "In vain do they talk of happiness who never subdue an impulse in obedience to a principle. He who never sacrificed a present for a future good, or a personal to a general one, can speak of happiness only as the blind speak of color." Wow. Wow. So somebody who's never, or someone who always indulges in short-term gratification, speaks of happiness only as the blind speak of color. That's got to be a super vague definition. They don't actually know. They actually haven't experienced true happiness and true joy. He's saying that true happiness and true joy comes from subduing an impulse and obedience to a principle. Um, Sacrifice a present for a future good, or a personal into a general one. Wow. I remember the internal struggle I faced as a 50-year-old university professor in deciding to leave the safe haven and comfort zone of university professorship to set up my own business. If it weren't for the vision of the greater good I might do, we never would have had the discipline to make the sacrifice and begin the self-denying process of establishing a new business, taking out a second mortgage and going deeply into debt. We even acquired a new tongue-in-cheek motto: happiness is a positive cash flow. That's funny. And sweated through each payroll for years. We could never have endured this difficult period if we hadn't had the vision of what was possible and the discipline to hang in there. So, yeah, that's really cool, actually. As a 50-year-old, you lived your whole life, you've taken care of your family, you're a professor at a university and very renowned at what you do and good at what you do, and to have the discipline to set that aside and to start your own company, to start your own business, to take the risk, to go through that pain and sorrow of setting up a business. And with all of that entails, I'm not going to go into it, but all of that what entails in there, and be able to do that, that's that's pretty powerful. Um, I truly believe that discipline is a trait common to all successful people. I admire the work of insurance executive Albert E. N. Gray, who spent a lifetime trying to discover the common denominator of success. Finally, he came to the simple but profound realization that although hard work, good luck, and astute human relations are all important, the successful person has formed the habit of doing things that failures don't like to do. Successful people don't like doing them either. Successful people don't like doing them either necessarily, but their dislike is subordinated by the strength of their purpose. That reminds me of ice baths all the time. My buddies and I do ice baths, and sometimes I just don't want to do them. Just don't want to. I don't want to throw on a swimsuit. I don't want to drive to the spot. I don't want to hop in the cold, freezing water, especially in the middle of winter. It's like January, and sometimes I don't want to do it, but I do it anyways because of this principle. Successful people don't like doing them either necessarily, but their dislike is subordinated by the strength of their purpose, of callousing my mind, of building my immune system and my heat resistance, and of just doing hard things, of getting comfortable with doing the uncomfortable. People who lack discipline and are unable to subordinate and sacrifice simply play at working. In a sense, every workday becomes like a long masked ball. They spend the day creating smokescreens, emails detailing what they're working on, phone messages reporting on the status of projects, long meetings to discuss how to do things. Generally, people who spend their time making excuses are those who lack focus and discipline. Setbacks are inevitable. Misery is a choice. There are always reasons, never an excuse. That's powerful. Taking responsibility for your life. Misery is a choice. That's cool. That's super cool. We can literally choose to be miserable or not. As we work hard for a higher purpose, we're going to be happy. That's how we're hardwired. That's how dopamine works. When we confront challenges and meet them, we receive a rush. And so if we choose not to do that, we are choosing to live in misery. Wow, that's powerful. When we create excuses and shift blame, all we're doing is hurting ourselves. We're breaking ourselves against our principles. Wow. Guys, discipline's crazy. So once you have the vision of who you are and of who other people are, then you have the discipline to sacrifice what you want most for what you want, or sacrifice what you want today for what you want most. So what are your long-term values? What's your who? What are the principles that are going to guide your life? How will you measure your life? I'm excited to find the answer to those questions, guys. Thank you. Have a great night.